I will know that if I'm in one phase of my cycle where it's a little bit harder for me to recover, I might get to a session and be like, you know what, I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to fight, what's going on inside of my body. It's just trying to do its thing. So I might just back off today.
And we're good.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Jolene Vulnerabili-tea. This is a conversation that is inspired by the guys over at the Resilience Project, to shout out over there. And this is something that Lizzie and I have found to be really important, to just be able to have conversations where we are vulnerable and we do talk about all the tricky stuff. If you are new and this is your first one, we've done quite a few already, so you can look at them and watch them back over at the Jolene Instagram page. But we're pretty excited today because we are joined with a special guest who Lizzie will introduce.
So everyone, today we have the amazing Carla Papac here with us. Hello, Carla.
Hi.
So Carla is just an awesome person, but she is also a Nutrigrain Ironwoman. She has competed in the series a couple of times. And I've known, we are both from Sydney, so I've been lucky enough to know Carla for a long time. But outside being a Nutrigrain Ironwoman, she has just finished her degree in exercise physiology and is also a Pilates instructor. She is continuing her study and is super passionate about learning about female physiology, which is what we're going to talk about today, because Carla has a wealth of knowledge about how important the female physiology is and how it can be applied to athletes specifically. And she's doing all this awesome work with a platform called Women Performance. So welcome, Carla.
Thank you, guys. I'm very excited to come on. Thanks for inviting me.
No worries.
Thanks for joining us. And before we get into the nitty-gritty questions, I have the most important question of the day. What tea are you drinking?
Okay, so I'm actually drinking a fennel tea in my cute little mug that my boss got me.
I love that cup.
Shout out to Scott. But fennel is very good for detoxing the lymphatic system.
Oh, here we go, straight into the
straight into it. But anyway, it just, I really like this tea. It makes me feel very light. But that's what tea I'm drinking. What about you guys?
I've got turmeric gold.
Oh, nice.
Yum.
I just have lemon and ginger with a little bit of lemon juice on top.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Alrighty, so we will jump in to the first question, and I'm taking my questions out of this lovely Jolene bag because I couldn't find, it's too warm to wear my Jolene jumpers now. So,
well, I was actually just thinking it's getting a little bit warm to be drinking tea.
Oh my God, yes, we might have to start like a iced tea segment. All right. Oh, wait, before we start the questions, there is a question we need to ask. Carla, can you please give us like a 1-minute wrap of what is important for these girls to know about their cycle and their periods?
Okay, so yeah, today we're going to touch a little bit on the menstrual cycle. Sure, most girls kind of know about it, boys may not, but basically what we touch on in the workshops that I'm kind of doing is just how our menstrual cycle and all of our female physiology changes our whole body specifically compared to a male. So it changes the way, we recover, the way we metabolize food, use energy systems when we're training. And there are little things that you can do to help kind of mitigate these factors and to improve when you're in different phases, I guess, which I won't go into too much. You can join the workshop if you want to know more. But yeah, so just a little bit of education, a little bit more into how the body works and what we can do in terms of like nutrition and everything and training to kind of work along with our physiology instead of working against it.
Perfect. So on that note, the first question is, so you obviously know a lot about how important it is to maintain your period being an athlete now, because a lot of athletes lose them while they're training. So how does it make you feel now that you have all this information, looking back on when you were young and you didn't know this information? How does it make you feel about how you felt about your periods when you were training?
Yeah, so I actually, perfect segment for it, vulnerability. I actually lost my period probably a few years ago, lead up to Perth Aussies. I was really lean and like just, training really hard as we all do in the lead up to Aussies. And when I lost it, I kind of was like, almost proud about it. I was like, yes, this just means that I'm training really hard. Like I'm a legit athlete now. And like I was really lean, so I felt, really good and fit. But that year I didn't really perform very well. I didn't feel strong, especially like in my ski, which was one of my favorite events. So I kind of walked away from that feeling like, okay, that wasn't right and something kind of needs to change. Now kind of years later, doing a little bit more research into it, just knowing now that your menstrual cycle is one of your biggest indicators of health. So like I said, like there being that stigma around like losing your period, meaning that you're a good athlete. I think a lot of other athletes have that mentality as well. And like, not trying to like throw shade if you do think like this or judge you, because I think it's more just like a little bit of lack of education and awareness around it. I know like Liz, we've sat on the beach and had this conversation with other girls and opened up about it. And there's a lot of people that think like this. So I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from it is that if I, do lose my period, or I start to notice that I'm getting, an irregular cycle, or it's starting to change, it just means that there's a little bit of a off balance between, my nutrition, my recovery, my training, even like my mental and emotional health. So it makes me just kind of come back into everything that I'm doing, maybe sit down and think, okay, what am I doing? What could I do a little bit better? Not necessarily what am I doing wrong, but what could I do a little bit better to stop my body from kind of running to its full capacity, or running to its kind of like least capacity, I guess. So yeah, I think it's more just like, it's made me a little bit aware. It's changed my thinking as to how I used to think of, instead of being like proud about losing your period, which is a little bit sad now when you kind of think about it, because having your period is amazing. And now just actually thinking, okay, I'm going to use it as more of an indicator of health rather than an indicator that I'm just training really hard.
And that is such wise advice, Carla. And it's so good that we are talking about this, and that you have, I guess, been open enough to be able to share your story, because it's something that is so new, and there's a lot more new research coming out, which is a really exciting area. But can you talk a little bit about, so I guess when you lose your period, it means that you're training so hard and putting so much stress on your body that your body isn't necessarily healthy. And so can you talk a little bit about how that actually made you feel as an athlete? So you mentioned lack of strength. Were you tired all the time? You mentioned mood and things like that. Can you talk us through like what that was actually like when you were pushing your body so hard?
Yeah, I think it's hard because like as athletes, we're going to be tired. Like that's the bottom line, is so like you're never probably going to feel like that you're bursting with energy every single day, especially after super hard sessions. But I definitely felt at that time that, yeah, I was just always tired, always cold. And I would like come home and I wouldn't be a very nice person until I had eaten, which obviously was affecting, my family life as well. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is that I like look back at that time and I think, even though I kind of felt, this perceived feeling of being really fit and lean, overall, like, not was I actually really happy, or was I kind of treating my body nicely, and did I feel that good? And I guess like, no, I didn't. It's kind of like you're always on that edge of just being like so tired and nearly breaking down. But in that time, I just kind of felt this is normal. It just, I'm training so much, it's normal. But like in reality, like, yes, we are going to feel tired, but probably not to that extent. We still need to feel good sometimes.
I think it's so important. Like, I wish I had known this when I was 15 or 16, because I lost my period as well. And I had the exact same mentality. And every time I would get it, I would think like, oh my God, no, I'm not training hard enough. Like, this is a disaster. Like, I need to like do 10 more sessions or something like that. And yeah, that's it. I wish I had known that, because I was obviously doing damage to my body, especially at that age when you really need your period, and like, it's the first time you're getting it. So it's important, and we don't want to be stopping that process from happening. So hopefully this will be a really informative thing for young girls that are listening.
Carla, when you were going through that, did you speak to your coaches and your family about this, or was this kind of like something silent that you were dealing with yourself?
No, like I remember speaking to my mum about it. She obviously got a little bit worried, but the funny thing, like, and not the funny thing is, again, not throwing shade at, the medical industry, but we did go, we went to my GP just to make sure that everything was fine. And again, he kind of said, this is normal. This is normal for athletes. Again, like there is so much more research out there that's suggesting otherwise, and that's like new and emerging. So I hope that, if you are an athlete and you do go see a doctor and they say this to you, not to completely disregard them, but to also, not just take their word as final. But yeah, I think as well, the hard thing is, and I'm trying to remove that stigma as well. And now that I'm a little bit older, I can, is that a lot of my coaches were male. And so it was a bit weird to kind of talk to your male coaches about it. And I think, even in the surf lifesaving industry, I do look around all the clubs and most of the coaches are males. So I think there's a benefit in kind of removing that stigma. I mean, every girl gets it. It shouldn't be as big of a deal as it is. So I think like it's super important to kind of normalize this conversation. And now like I feel a lot more comfortable talking about it. I mean, we're talking on, a public forum here, but I would probably feel more comfortable talking to my coaches about it now. But I totally get when you're a bit younger and it's this new thing's happening to you, you might not feel as comfortable.
Awesome. All right. Into the second question, which is like an elaboration on what we're talking about. But so now that you know how much our hormones affect our mood, not only our mood, but our energy levels, especially when we're training, how has your mentality changed when you're at training now? Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway that I found is I'm just not so hard on myself, especially when I am feeling a bit off at training. So I think like the biggest takeaway from my degree and all this extra study I'm doing is that our bodies are amazing. And there is so many processes going on inside of us that we honestly have no idea about. And there's still so much I don't know about it, but it's so deeply affected by how we treat our bodies as well. So for example, if I know that I'm in a certain phase of my cycle and there's, we're not going to go into it today, but I will know that if I'm in one phase of my cycle where it's a little bit harder for me to recover, I might get to a session and be like, you know what, I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to fight, what's going on inside of my body. It's just trying to do its thing. So I might just back off today. And I won't feel guilty for it, which I think is the biggest thing. I think like guilt is a huge part of being an athlete. And we're always struggling with it. We miss a session and we feel guilty and it eats us up inside. So I think just like taking away that guilt, being kinder to my body, and I guess just like listening to it. I know people always say listen to your body, which can be really hard, but even going deeper than that, knowing what's going on, like physiologically, I can appreciate that my body is just trying to kind of keep up and allow me to keep training. So I need to help it and take those extra steps to keep it going. Yeah,
definitely. I think that is so important as well, because when I was young, like I would hate missing sessions, and then so like get to sessions and sometimes be so tired and not really know why, like thinking back on it being like I slept well, I ate well, I just can't go today, what's wrong with me? And you kind of like internalize it like it's your fault. But when you can look back and think like it might be my hormones, it might be something I actually can't control, then that does definitely help relieve the pressure of having to perform all the time.
I think that the guilt thing is certainly something, and Lizzie's just said it then, that every athlete can relate to. You always set your goals, you make your training program, and if you can't make it or you're not hitting those goal times, then you start to kind of wonder what's going on and start to worry. Is this something, and I know that you have spoken about this, but is this something that has really empowered you to be able to be confident in your training now? And then the second part of that, you mentioned that there's a phase that it's a little bit harder to recover. What are you then doing if you know that Aussies, like a 5-day competition, is occurring in that phase?
Yeah, so I guess the first part of it is, again, like just taking the load off myself a little bit, and then also just taking my training a little bit more into my hands. Like, we put so much trust in our coaches, which is amazing. And I'm sure we all have like great relationship with our coaches, but you kind of get to an age, and I hope that, young girls can start to do this too, where you kind of think, okay, if I am in this phase, I might just, just drop the intensity down a little bit and you feel confident doing that. Because sometimes a lot of the time we just need kind of like a reason or a justification. So it's kind of like, this is providing you with a justification. You can take it a little bit easy. There doesn't need to be a coach to tell you to do it. You can tell yourself, and you can have trust within yourself that you're doing the right thing. Because a lot of the time you'll be like, no, it's just me. I'm just being silly. I'm being tired. I'm being weak. Like I can't take the session off. Whereas now, like I have a good group of friends and we all know a lot about this, and we'll all compare where we're at in our cycle. And it'd be like, I need to go a bit easier today. And she'll be like, me too. And we'll be like, yes, like
that's so awesome.
Yeah. And then the second part, about what things you can do to mitigate it. I think, yeah, also you don't want to get this too into your head, because it might come to Aussies and you'd be like, oh no, I'm in my high hormone phase, which is when it is a little bit harder to recover. And then you'd be like, I'm going to race so bad and there's no way I can win Aussies now if I'm in this phase. Just to let you know, that's not true. There are world records that have been broken in every phase of the cycle. So don't let that affect you too much. It's more in the long-term scheme of things of your training. So if I know that I'm in that, if I'm in that phase, there are nutrition things that you can do, such as like increasing your protein, making sure you're just eating before and after training, taking that extra step to recover. So like I said, if you need to reduce the intensity down, or maybe if you just need to like sleep in one morning. I mean, I'm the biggest advocate of the sleep in, probably need to do it less. But yeah, like there are lots of extra steps that you can do. And a lot of it is related to just nutrition and recovery. And they're not huge steps. Like I'm not asking you to change your whole training program. They're just little things that can make a difference. And those I think are like the 1%ers. We always want to be the best athlete, and everyone's, doing those swim sessions. Everyone's doing those board sessions. So what can you do that's kind of going to set you apart from everyone else? And hopefully everyone starts doing this, and then it's not so much of an advantage, but it's more of an advantage for yourself. So do those 1%ers right, and I think you'll notice big differences.
Such wise advice there, Carla. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I think that this is something that is really important to talk about, but also important to share your experience and how it made you feel and how you're kind of managing yourself now.
Yeah, it's been so awesome. And I think there'll be a lot of girls that might not know a lot about this. I know when I was young, I knew nothing about it. So if I listened to this when I was young, my mind would have been blown. So thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom.
Oh, thank you. And I just want to say, like, it's still a work in progress. Like, I don't think you'll ever reach a stage where like everything's going along perfect. I'm still learning about this, and still some days I still don't apply it. So I think the biggest thing is don't be too hard on yourself. It's hard enough, making all the sessions and doing everything that you're supposed to do. So yeah, I think just take the pressure off and enjoy it.
Awesome.
That's right. All about enjoyment. And just one more thing to note, that if anyone is not sure if they've got a healthy period, we did a Jolene interview with Dr. Drew Moffrey a little while ago. You can search for it, and he really talks about what a healthy period is, so that you can start to get a bit of an understanding if yours is healthy.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. Enjoy your tea, and
thank you. I haven't really done much drinking.
Now we can drink them now.
Thanks so much
everyone.
for having me on. Bye.